I'm not a massive fan of this movement. I know many of you may be, but I don't really like this movement for my glutes. Would I have this as my number 5 exercise? No, but again, I probably wouldn't include it whatsoever. I've actually come to realise recently that this chair is not very good. It's not a very good chair, as you know. It makes lots of noises, but also progressively lowers in height. I'm curious to know if I'm going to gradually slide down the screen as the video goes on, as the chair gradually gets lower and lower. Anyway, it's video time, and we talk about some things on the internet. This actually recommended to me, I believe, in the comment section, and it's Meggan Grubb's 5 must-do exercises to grow your glutes. If anyone is ever wondering, I don't think there are any must-do exercises unless you're like competing. So if you're powerlifting, you must squat, bench and deadlift. If you aren't doing a sport that surrounds certain movements, I don't think any movement is a must do. A few things very quickly before we crack on with the video. Number 1, again, for what, the 3rd time running now, you've absolutely obliterated a light goal, and I'd love to see it. I don't know if this video is going to be able to make it, but we're going to find out because I'm going to shoot for it again. 1,000 likes in the first 24 hours would be bloody splendid because that is the goal. Again, if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the channel by clicking the red button down below and the bell next to it so you get notified when I upload every week, twice a week. If you have a question you want me to answer at the end of the next video, drop it down below for comment question of the week and I shall do so. But now it's headwear time and it's a double whammy today. I am a Disney princess today. I'm actually a Disney princess every day, but I digress. It comes with sunglasses. Let's have a gander at the video. Meggan is, I believe she's actually a former Gymshark athlete, and I have covered her before a few times in videos here and there, but never really had a proper look at her. But now I'm going to have a look at this very recent video of hers, in which she obviously discusses some must-do exercises for the glutes, and I'm also going to give my take and my opinion regarding my 5, based on opinion, top glute exercises, should you happen to care. The video does have a good few minutes of her talking in the car about how she did do a video like this a while ago, and it's her most viewed video, so we're going to kind of skip forward to the training bit.
Okay, we are kicking off today's session with some glute activation, but also here we're actually opening up our hips.
Number 1, glute activation. I don't really like that terminology, like the word activation. I know I use it myself sometimes, it's a bad habit, because when you say like glute activation, it almost implies that your glutes are turned off and you're doing movements to turn them on. I guess what one would deem to be activation is actually what many would call pre-exhausting, doing movements that target the muscle you wish to potentially feel more, perhaps, as a means of like pre-exhausting it and creating a bit of fatigue before then going into the main work.
So our hip flexors, you may not know this, are connected and essentially partners in crime with our glutes. And it's so key to open them up. They can get very tight, especially if you have a job where you sit down a lot.
Fair point regarding tight hips and stuff when you are sat down a lot. So if you have an office job perhaps, or you are sat down often for whatever reason that may be, you may find that your hip flexors are quite tight, or just your kind of hip region in general is quite tight. Definitely worth, if you can, throughout your day, maybe standing up for a few minutes, walking around the house, do whatever you need to do, maybe do a bit of stretching here and there. Just stay moving, otherwise you may find that you're getting very tight and almost like feels like things like seizing up around the hips. It's not very nice and it can hinder your workouts. Definitely worth throwing in a bit of spicy mobility work, a bit of spicy dynamic stretches to make sure everything's feeling loosey-goosey and ready to go.
Okay, we are kicking off our 5 favourite moves with the golden, absolute favourite of mine. It is the hip thrust.
I'm actually going to agree with Meggan here. If I had to choose a singular favourite movement for the glutes myself personally, it would be the hip thrust also. You can see she's also lowered the bench slightly, so it's on a decline. You might find it's a bit of a nicer position to hip thrust from. The thing I like about the hip thrust is it's a movement that allows you to really shift a lot of weight whilst placing a lot of emphasis on the glutes themselves without too many other muscles getting almost too involved. You should probably, in most cases, be able to hip thrust more than you can squat, which is bloody fantastic, especially considering you're utilising less of the quads, less of the other muscles sort of thing. And like I said, it's a lot more glute dominant.
As we are lifting up, we're squeezing, we're not overextending, we're not arching that back. You just want that squeeze, so focus on that squeeze, think about that squeeze, mind to muscle connection.
I've said this a few times before, the mind muscle connection isn't actually as important as many think it is. Obviously focus on going heavy, which is obviously relative to you because strength is relative. Just ensure you are using good form and you are remaining safe.
Second exercise today, we have a barbell reverse lunge elevated. Now, as you can see, I'm standing on a small plate. It adds just a slight bit of elevation, but allows me to go that little bit deeper.
The one thing I want to address, a great movement. I do respect this movement. So first of all, it looks like these shoes might be a bit spicy with the spongy sole. I can't really tell because I'm going to be honest with you, these are actually surprisingly dark and I can't actually see a lot. From here, it looks like they might be quite soft shoes, which again, you know, a bit the wobble, unstable. We don't want that. The other thing is her heel is hanging off the plate a bit. Ensure your whole foot is on that plate, because when you are doing any variation like this, you want the majority of your weight to obviously be going through the front foot. You also want it to be evenly distributed across the midfoot. So which is why I say big toe, little toe, heel, 3 points of contact, create that triangle, drive those points into the floor, which then helps you evenly distribute the weight. My number 2 movement is actually very similar. It's pretty much the same thing, a slight difference in which you are not kind of resetting between reps. It would be a split squat. Personally, I like both front foot elevated and rear foot elevated, which is obviously known to be Bulgarian split squats. But for the glutes, my number 2 movement would probably be a Bulgarian split squat. Regardless of how often I do them, and regardless of how much I lift, whatever I do, I can look at a split squat. I could even think about it. I could breathe next to somebody doing a split squat, and I wake up the next day with horrendous DOMs. You don't have to use a barbell, by the way. You can use dumbbells. If I'm doing like a Bulgarian split squat, perhaps, I will often prefer to use dumbbells. I find it easier to balance, and I find it's a bit easier to set up, and if things do get a bit wobbly and you're a bit uneasy, a bit shaky, you can just drop the dumbbells and kind of save yourself from the stumble. Whereas with a barbell, I find it a bit harder to do so, you know?
Start lower on the weight, perfect your form. It's so freaking good for your glutes, guys, trust me. And make sure you're going nice and deep. You don't want any half reps.
Great comment there. Depth and range of motion. With these types of movements like split squat variations or maybe lunge variations like so, try and get your knee as close to the ground as possible within reason. Obviously, range of motion limitations are different. We all have our range of motions we can go through. But yeah, try and get your knee as close to the ground as possible. I want your knee hair or like a bit of material to literally tickling the floor. Just a little tickle. Don't bang the knee because that's going to hurt. Trust me, it's a bad time. It's a spicy time, but not a good spicy time, a bad spicy time. Just tickle that floor with your knee hair and you're laughing.
Next up, we have the Sumo Deadlift. Now, as you can see, I have a very wide stance here, and that is what makes this deadlift so different to any other deadlift. But also, I think the best deadlift for your glutes.
The deadlift is obviously fantastic, specifically either the Sumo Deadlift or the RDL. I'm kind of torn which one I prefer myself. What is the best deadlift is very much up to you, your leverages and so many things. A lot of people say the best deadlift for you is the one in which you can remain most upright, but ultimately for the majority of people, I think the best deadlift for you is the one you can do most comfortably and feel the best doing, ideally shifting the most weight. I'm very on the fence. My top 2 are kind of pretty solidified and I'm pretty comfortable with those, but my 3, 4 and 5 I'm a bit unsure with. I may mix and match, but I think for my number 3 I would probably lean more towards a dumbbell walking lunge.
Okay, next up we have the walking lunge.
Oh, there you go.
As you can see, we are walking while we are lunging.
Great technique, honestly, bloody fantastic technique, I'll give it that.
Actually try to do when I do my walking lunges is not stop in between each one. To really get those glutes involved, I have to make sure that my leg comes nice and far forward.
Again, yeah, I back it. I probably would take a bit of a wider stance or a wider step when doing a walking lunge. Lunge in a manner that's most comfortable and best for you. But yeah, personally, I would probably put the lunges as maybe number 3, and my number 4 would probably be, I'm kind of on the fence. Again, like I said, 3, 4 and 5, I'm really unsure. You know what, I'm going to say it now, but I'm going to reassess after number 5 and mix and match and go through the order. I'd probably do a deadlift variation for number 3. Probably the RDL, to be honest. I really like it myself for my glutes, but the Sumo Deadlift is arguably just as good, maybe even better, who knows. And then my number 4 would actually probably be a walking lunge too. So yeah, very similar to what Meggan is saying here. I do back it.
And last but not least, we have the cable pull through. So I usually tend to finish sessions with moves like this.
I'm not a massive fan of this movement. I know many of you may be, but I don't really like this movement for my glutes. Would I have this as my number 5 exercise? No, but again, I probably wouldn't include it whatsoever. I know what you're thinking, Harry, we've made it to number 5, you haven't included the squats. That's what we're going to do now. My number 5 would probably be the barbell back squat. And I say this because, obviously, I love squatting. I think squats are a fantastic movement. I've said this before, for glute development and only looking at the glutes, I do think there are better exercises. Not saying you shouldn't squat at all. I think squats are absolutely, yes, and they're a fantastic movement. If they align with your goals and you want to squat, go for it. Do you need to squat? I don't think there are any exercises that you need to do. I do think the barbell back squat is potentially a bit overrated for glute development, which is why it makes it number 5 on my list. Regarding the list itself, let's have a gander. So number 1, hip thrust. I'm keeping those in there. I think they're bloody solid. Number 2, I'm probably going for a Bulgarian split squat. Number 3, we're going to say let's go RDL, so Romanian deadlift. Number 4, walking lunge. I'm going to back Meggan here. I think walking lunge is a fantastic movement. Dumbbell walking lunge. Don't be doing those bodyweight walking lunges. I know you're watching this, and when you do your walking lunges, I know you get a bit lazy with them. I know, like, oh, Harry, they're hard. They hurt my bum. They make me out of breath. Got to do walking itself. It is tough. I hate them too. They make me huff and puff and blow a house down. I'm telling you now, grab the dumbbells. You are far stronger than you think you are, and you are far stronger than you give yourself credit for. Pick up the dumbbells. Number 5 movement, I'm gonna go barbell back squat. Would I do the exercises in this order? No, I wouldn't. If I were to order them, I probably wouldn't do these 5 exercises in one day. But let's say we did. I would go barbell back squat. I would then go hip thrust. I would then go RDL, split squat, walking lunge. That's how I would order those 5 movements. Just because I've said the hip thrust are my favourite movement for the glutes doesn't mean I think they should be first. Many factors to consider. Which movement's more taxing, which movement's more complicated. So many things to think about when structuring and deciding where to place each movement. These 5 are merely my preferred 5. Doesn't mean they're yours, doesn't mean they're right, doesn't mean they're wrong. It is purely based on opinion and preference. It actually very much aligns with Meggan's. Obviously there are a couple of things I'd mix and match here and there. As a whole, I think we share very similar opinions, which is great to see. It's also fantastic seeing somebody with such a large social media following really encouraging people to lift weights and also showing how much weight they're lifting. Like Meggan's shifting some good weights. You saw on the hip thrust, she was putting up, what, 2.5 plates or something along those lines? Strong individual, and it's bloody fantastic to see her promoting the importance of resistance training and strength training to help you achieve your goals. So honestly, I really respect that from her. But that is it. That is the video. Before we finish the video, obviously I must do what needs to be done, which is actually comment question of the week. And this is actually very relevant, something I did want to cover in a bit more detail when I did the Natasha video. Does it matter how many minutes you rest between sets? Like I rest at least 2 to 4 minutes depending how heavy compound is. Does it hinder growth when I do this long? Because I always see others only rest 90 seconds, but I don't rest enough if I only do 90 seconds. So basically, essentially, is you're asking, how long should you rest? Personally, what I will say is this. If you are looking to optimize hypertrophy, which is the building of muscle, you need to be training to or within close proximity of failure. When doing so, when training to failure and really pushing it and really giving it the beans, we'll say, you are going to need sufficient rest to ensure that when the next set comes around, your performance doesn't take too much of a hit. I would personally rest for at least 2 minutes between sets. So I think you stating that you rest for at least 2 to 4 minutes, I think that's a bloody good range. And I too would probably rest about 2 to 4 minutes depending on the movement. But that is it. That is a video. Obviously, as I stated earlier, 1,000 likes in the first 24 hours is the goal. If you haven't already, please do consider clicking the red button down below and the bell next to it to subscribe to the channel and get notified when I upload videos twice a week, every week on a Monday and a Thursday. And if you too have a question you want me to answer at the end of the next video for Common Question of the Week, drop it down below in the comment section and I shall do so. Thank you for tolerating my hat, thank you for tolerating my surprisingly dark sunglasses, and thank you for tolerating the video.